I'm Mitch Siegler, founder of THINC Foundation. We're a nonprofit organization focused on keeping divisive ideology out of K through 12 classrooms, especially in ethnic studies. Through our Think Deeply conversations, we talk with educators, elected officials, and thought leaders about topics pertaining to our K-12 schools. Our guests today are Maya Phillips and Mike Zhao. Maya grew up in St. Petersburg, Russia, and immigrated to the United States as a young adult. She is on the school board for the Ramona, California Unified School District and is a strong advocate for academics, local control, and parental rights. Yukong Mike Zhao, the founding president of the Asian American Coalition for Education, is a nationally recognized Asian community leader advocating for equal education rights and meritocracy. Mike grew up in China, immigrated to the United States in 1992, and received his international MBA from the University of South Carolina. As a survivor of China's Cultural Revolution, Mike has published a book, Critical Race Theory and Culture, America's Dangerous Repeat of China's Cultural Revolution, and many opinion pieces advocating for educational excellence and meritocracy. Maya and Mike, welcome to Think Deeply. Let's begin with your individual origin stories. Maya, we'll start with you. Why did you come to the US and what's your version of the American dream?
Thank you for having me. I came to the US in 1999 after growing up in St. Petersburg and getting education there. I married an American and everything was so different in this country, but also so much better. It took me a while to get adjusted, but of course it's easy to get used to good things. I was not involved much with education system to begin with, but when I was growing up, I thought education system was the same everywhere. I started getting more and deeper into education once I became a school board member. Then, especially when it came to time to implement ethnic studies, what struck me how similar ethnic studies curriculum was with everything that I have read in the Soviet Union newspapers at the time. So it was deja vu. So I realized, okay, I've seen firsthand what kind of character, what kind of people, what kind of country it creates if you follow this ideology. So I had seen what comes after that. So I thought, okay, I can't have this country go that way because I've seen what happens after it's all implemented. I thought that this is the hill I'm going to die on.
Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Mike, you come from communist China. Tell us your experience growing up and coming to the United States.
Yeah, thanks again for this opportunity. I grew up in communist China under Chairman Mao. During the Cultural Revolution, first my father suffered political persecution. Then my grandparents were forced to relocate from the capital city of Yunnan province, Kunming, to a remote, poor mountain village. A few months later, my grandma suffered a heart attack and then passed away due to a lack of medical treatment. I experienced, devastating personal loss. And decades later, also my mom died from extreme poverty. And I personally also experienced extreme poverty myself. Fortunately, in 1978, another Chinese leader, Deng Xiaoping, implemented the open and reform policy, befriended with America, and then I was able to go to the college in China, one of the top college, and in 1992, I was able to come to America to pursue my American dream. Over the last decades, I co-founded the Asian American Coalition for Education, mobilize Asian community fight for equal education rights. I also pay attention to, the increasing indoctrination of K-12 education, wrote a book against critical race theory and its teaching in K-12 education. That's how brought us here. So my experience shows America is a land of opportunity, and its constitution as the foundation all, all happiness, and the American dream, we should come out to defend that.
Well, America remains the land of opportunity, I think, and has been for many generations. My father was an immigrant from Nazi Germany, and I'm a first generation American. Each of us has a personal experience, and yours is fascinating. During the last generation, we've seen a lot of ideology creeping into our society, including in our K-12 classrooms in California and many other places. Mike, how have you witnessed this evolution? If you would share with us your perspective on how education has changed since you came here in the early 90s.
Sure. Just I want to be very frank. When I came to America in 1992, through basically within the first 10 years, I did not have a chance being directly exposed to K-12 education. But I was in college, right? So what really alarmed me was in the last decades or so, when I sent my kids to K to 12 education, when I began to pay attention to, deeply in this kind of issue, I found, critical race theory, this kind of divisive ideology was taught, in the K to 12 education. Innocent people were divided as oppressors versus oppressed, similar to my home country during Cultural Revolution. I wanted, during the Cultural Revolution, simply because my grandparents were categorized as oppressors. They were deprived the right to live in a capital city of Yunnan province with, relatively speaking, good living standard, being sent to countryside to suffer, right? So this kind of situation really reminded me, how dangerous it is to having this kind of divisive ideology being taught, being indoctrinated towards, our children. One point I want to make. China recent decades got significantly good progress in terms of economic growth. Why? Because Deng Xiaoping wisely stopped a class struggle movement in China in late 1970s. But unfortunately, in America, many radical politicians, launched this kind of, divisive racial struggle in America. So that is what, I can, cause my severe concern. That's the reason I published a book called Critical Race Theory and Woke Culture and America's Dangerous Repeat of Chinese Cultural Revolution. So basically, America is repeating the dangerous path China had during Cultural Revolution.
Well, it's quite ironic, isn't it? We have seen these things in other cultures and societies, and we should be learning from the mistakes that other people have made, and we're making them the same way, unfortunately. Maya, you've seen a lot of change in education since you came to the United States. Maybe you could share with me what you saw when you first came, how things look today, and how it's all unfolded.
I think society was not as polarized back then in early 2000s as it is now, because there were no all those theories in public discussion. No, there's no DEI or no CRT, no other theories that were noticeable in the media. So they were also probably not present or not noticeable in schools, at least not for me. But I understand Mike's passion, how he sees that the country, America, is following the path of a Chinese revolution, because it also reminds me the path of the Russian Revolution and everything that follows after that. And I see what comes with this kind of ideology, what it brings, how much blood, how much misery, how much death it brings if it's implemented the way the radicals that follow this ideology, the way they hope it's going to be implemented. And I think that school mirrors the society. And all those discussions in schools, I see also being discussions in the society as well. I think things were much calmer in 2000, 2010, when my kids were in school, I did not see any of that as a parent.
Well, that's an excellent point. Our society has become incredibly polarized, our politics, our media, and our education. We've got all this ideology. We've got these binaries. People are told they're oppressors and they should feel guilty or shameful, or they're oppressed and the deck is stacked against them and they can never be successful. We need to move away from that oppressor oppressed narrative and let everybody come together and shine.
I think all the issues you mentioned, they all stem from the same ideology, the same Marxist ideology. Because, for example, in civics, when kids are taught that America is racist and all those things negative that come with that, that tells me this is victimhood, victim mentality. That's also part of Marxist ideology that divides people in oppressors and oppressed. So this kind of teaching makes kids think there are victims, hence oppressed. It also perpetuates the same dichotomy of Marxist ideology. So whether it's based on class, rich and poor, exploiters and exploited, or on race, it's still the same ideology. But also the same ideology does not allow discussion and does not allow to express difference of opinions. This kind of ideology shuts down any discussion and shuts down any opinion that's different from the narrative they want to perpetuate. That's why it's so dangerous, because this ideology in essence is totalitarian. Totalitarian ideologies don't allow opinion that's different. That's going to be the end of any democracy, of any republic, of any freedom of thought, of any variety of ideas.
Yes, you have to do the work. You have to peel back the onion, read the history, and understand that what starts with cute little concepts can lead to division in our society and hate and discrimination and worse. We need to be bringing people together, not tearing them apart. It starts in the classroom when kids are young. What do you think about all of that?
Sure. I think absolutely number one, we should really teach, our children the truth, right? The history. America had like, unpleasant chapter, for example, slavery, people of color, including like early decades, Chinese Exclusion Act, right? Japanese internment. We had that kind of era, unfortunately, and we should present the children, the truth. That's no problem. But we need to have a very balanced way. So we need also talk about American history in a positive, look at the positive side. I want to say, America is far from perfect, but tens of millions of immigrants would agree with me, on economic, technological, political, even social justice fronts. America is the greatest nation on earth. China had a huge lesson learned in 1962, when dictator Chairman Mao, launched a nationwide class struggle education, indoctrinated our children to adopt the class struggle theory, which divided innocent Chinese people into oppressors and oppressed. Within the 5 years, within basically 4 years later, it indoctrinated tens of millions innocent Chinese youth into the communist foot soldier. They launched, they become the foot soldier for Chairman Mao's Cultural Revolution. They tortured millions of people. Some have been killed. My father was tortured among them. And also they destroyed over 3,000 years Chinese cultural heritage. So that's how dangerous this kind of divisive indoctrination. So, also very importantly, I personally believe we should not really have ethnic study class in K to 12. We should have that in college. If some high school children want to take that as, as like like college classes probably as exact elective, but coming back to my original statement, our history will teach, our hard lesson like slavery, Chinese Exclusion Act, we should not avoid that. But more importantly, we also need to teach, how great America is and how great contribution all the, racial groups contribute to this nation.
Well, that's a beautiful concept. And it is true. I believe many Americans don't like it when our elected officials go into their polarized corners and don't work together and don't find common ground and compromise. We don't like it in our city hall. We don't like it in Washington, D.C. And we don't want that ideology infiltrating our classrooms. Instead of learning compromise and civics and healthy debate, we have this situation where people are pitted against each other and it leads to negative outcomes and sometimes violence. It divides our society, divides our children. There's no good end to that cycle. Thank you both for participating in this conversation today. It's been a great discussion. I'm Mitch Siegler with THINC Foundation. Thank you for joining us here today. Please visit our website, think.org, to learn more about our mission and our work.